Clorinde is the newest electro character in Genshin Impact who also has Bond of Life mechanic because Hoyo is running out of ideas. And in this guide, we are gonna be going over everything as well as clear the misinformation spreading about her. And I promise you that once you see this video, you will have no doubts about her kit, weapons, team comps, constellations, and whatever else you can think of. But before we start, a word from our sponsor, Loot Bar. Loot Bar is the best way to top up in your favorite games like Genshin Impact and Honkai's Star Rail, and that too only using your UID, which makes it really secure. Basically, you scroll 2 inches down this video and click the first link in the description, which will take you to this site where you'll be presented with a bunch of options, all cheaper than what you see in game. Next, you select what you want. For instance, I'll select the $42 pack, which in game will cost me $50. Then I'll enter the UID, select the server, and click this yellow top up button, do the payment, and boom, you just got your gems in literally 2 minutes at an $8 cheaper price, and the money you saved goes in your piggy bank. Now that's what we call a win-win scenario. Loot Bar is 100% trustworthy and is even endorsed by big shots like Dukaja, Teva Times, and Jello Impact. Now, unless you hate money, start using Loot Bar today from the link given in the description, and as a first-time user, you will even get an additional 5% discount on your purchase, making your savings an astounding 20%. Now that's what we call a steal. Thanks to Loot Bar for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back into it. So before we start understanding our kit, I would like to mention 2 things. First is the Bond of Life mechanic, which is the red thingy around your HP bar that needs to be healed first before healing the actual character themselves. And second is her general rotation, which starts off with using her support abilities, followed by Clorinde's burst if available, elemental skill twice, followed by normal attack 3 times, and then you repeat the last 2 steps until the skill duration ends. Now, I know that her rotation doesn't seem anything crazy, especially compared to our but that's a plus point in my opinion because more people will be able to play her easily. And one important point to note is that if you have seen my last video about Clorinde or are already familiar with her kit, then you can skip to this timestamp since there have been no more changes to her kit. But if you need a refresher or don't know her kit, then keep watching. With that being said, let's delve right into it. Starting off with the normal attacks, which are just that, basic sword attacks and nothing more. In fact, they are so useless that you don't even need to level them up because all of her damage comes from her skill and burst. And speaking of skill, this is the most interesting part about her kit and the source of most of her damage. So, as soon as you press the skill button, she enters a special state which we will call the Texas state. Now, in this state, her normal attacks, which were just those basic sword attacks, they are changed to bullet shots. And these bullet shots scale off of her skill, making the normal attack talent absolutely useless like I said before. But this doesn't mean that any normal attack buffs won't work with it. No, cause the bullet shots, even though use the skill scaling, are still counted as normal attacks, meaning Junjin's normal attack buff or the 2-piece hunter set effect will still work. Now, aside from just looking cool, these bullets grant Clorinde 35% bond of life per shot until it goes over 100%, meaning 3 bullet shots. And one interesting thing about the bond of life indicator is that it will always be half of how much you actually have. So let's say you have 70% bond of life, then it will only show up as 35% of the HP bar in the indicator. So these bullet shots are piercing shots, which means that if enemies are standing in a straight line, it will go through all of them, dealing damage to everyone. But as soon as you go over 100% bond of life, these shots will be changed to non-piercing shots, meaning they won't pass through enemies anymore, and at the same time they'll also do less damage. So, to summarize all of this crap, bullet shots fired below 100% bond of life will be piercing shots and will do more damage, along with giving 35% bond of life to Clorinde per shot. But after you get over 100% bond of life, these shots will be changed to non-piercing shots, with each shot dealing less damage and not giving bond of life anymore. And that's why using bullet shots after 100% bond of life is a pretty significant DPS loss in my opinion, but this is where her actual proper skill attack comes into play. So her skill attack has 3 levels, with the first level being when you have 0% bond of life. At this state, her skill will do minimum damage while not healing her at all. But as soon as you get over 0% bond of life, the skill attacks would be enhanced to level 2, where they'll deal more damage and also heal her. But the healing won't be much, of course, since we still have a level beyond this. And the next level is when she has over 100% bond of life. At this state, her skill has ascended even further beyond and has reached its max damage capacity along with max healing. So when you do the skill now, she will lunge through enemies and deal 3 instances of damage, while in the previous levels she was only dealing 1. So basically, at 0% bond of life, she will deal minimum damage with no healing. At bond of life above 0 but under 100, she will deal slightly more damage and also heal. And above 100% bond of life, she will deal maximum damage along with max healing. And this healing is based off of her bond of life. For instance, at level 3, she will heal for 110% of the current bond of life she has per skill attack. And if you understood her kit till now, then you would know it means 110% of 105 bond of life, because each bullet shot will give 35% bond of life, and 35 plus 35 plus 35 equals 105. So 110% of 105 is 115.5, and out of the 115%, 105 will be used to clear up the bond of life you already had, and the remaining 10.5% is the healing Clorinde will actually receive. Also, while Clorinde is in Texas state, any external healing she receives, which means healing from anyone other than herself, will be converted to bond of life, meaning she can go over 100% bond of life that much quicker. Now, moving on to her burst. Yeah, so that's exactly what her burst is. It's an AoE attack with a range similar to that of Kaching, I would say, and it grants Clorinde 120% bond of life, and that's it. Now let's talk about her passives. So she has a talent like Nubillet, where she gets extra damage from her bullet shots and burst whenever an electro reaction is triggered by the team for up to 3 stacks. But unlike Nubillet, she doesn't require 3 different reactions to gain 3 stacks. I repeat, she doesn't require 3 different reactions to gain 3 stacks. Instead, the same reaction done multiple times will count towards this passive, meaning 3 electro charge reactions or 3 overload reactions will max out this passive's buff. Another passive of Clorinde, which everyone is sleeping on, is the 20% extra crit rate. Basically, after Clorinde's bond of life goes above 100, further increasing or decreasing the bond of life will give her 10% extra crit rate for up to 2 stacks, meaning 20% extra crit rate. Now, let's put on our thinking cap, shall we, and think about the benefits of this passive. So, in a Furina team where HP changes are inevitable, Clorinde can potentially get 81% crit rate without even a single stat of crit rate in her artifact, because after the initial 2 skill hits, Clorinde will have no problems maintaining the 20% extra crit rate for the rest of the battle. And if we combine that with her base crit rate of 24.2 and add in the 4-piece hunter set effect, then we are looking at 24.2 plus 20 plus 36% crit rate without even a single crit rate stat, which means you are getting 80% crit rate for free. Alright, so now that we understand all her talents, let's start from the top of her rotation once again to fully finalize whatever we have understood so far. So the battle starts off with support abilities, followed by Clorinde's burst if you have it, which will immediately give her 120% bond of life. Next, you press the skill button to enter Texas state, and then press it again to do a level 3 lunge skill, cause you already have over 100% bond of life from the burst. Doing this will clear whatever bond of life she had and also heal her. Then you do 3 normal attacks or bullet shots, with each shot giving her 35% bond of life, totaling 105. Then you skill again and continue this cycle for 7.5 seconds, after which the skill will enter cooldown. Now if you don't have the burst in the beginning, then just press the skill button once, followed by 3 normal attacks, skill again and repeat.
Who's that Pokemon? It's
the subscribe button.
So, now that we understand her kit, I would only recommend leveling up her skill and burst, as the normal attack talent is absolutely useless like I said before. Now let's discuss weapons. And to no one's surprise, her signature is obviously the best in slot as it is a really good stat stick and the passive is literally based on Bond of Life changes, which occur frequently while playing with Clorinde. Another solid option is Ayato's weapon Haran, which is her second best in slot but might result in overcapping on crit rate since she does get enough from her ascension and passive. But enough with these 5 charts. Let's talk free to play weapons, and the only good option is Finale of the Deep, which is a craftable weapon, so you can get that pretty easily. In fact, I'll be using that as a reference to rank other weapons. Also, if you do have Black Sword, then that's a really good choice, but it requires you to buy the battle pass, so not really free to play. Another solid choice, if you are unlucky like me, is Lion's Roar, which is on par with Finale of the Deep if not better. Harbinger of Dawn is another option which can be potentially better than Lion's Roar, but maintaining over 90% HP to keep the passive up will be an issue. The full list of our weapon rankings is displayed on screen, but keep in mind these will vary heavily based on your team composition. Now let's talk artifacts, and realistically there are only 3 solid choices. First is the new Bond of Life set, which is her best in slot, followed by Thundering Fury and Gladiator. Gladiator on average is 10% worse compared to the best in slot, and Thundering Fury becomes the best in slot in long rotation teams like Clorinde, Furina, Nahida and Fischl, cause Nahida and Furina have a long skill and burst duration. But as a general rule of thumb, run her on 4-piece Bond of Life set since that will net her highest personal damage. As for the stats, I would recommend the standard choices of attack percent sands, electro damage bonus goblet and crit damage circlet, and try to get at least 130 ER, after which you are pinching. Now I know that even the hunter set is a good choice, but it's only effective with one character like I said before, so not worth mentioning as a generalized option. Now before we discuss teams, I would like to discuss her constellations briefly first. So Clorinde's constellations are literally just DPS increases with no changes to her gameplay. For instance, C1 will give her 2 extra coordinated attacks from a summon every 1.2 seconds, which is more DPS. C2 increases her passive's cap and provides interruption resistance, which again more DPS. C4 burst damage increase based on Bond of Life, and C6 is extra crit rate and damage along with an extra summon and even more interruption resistance. So like I said before, all of these constellations are just damage increases with no change in gameplay. But for those wanting to pull for her constellations, the breakpoints are C2 and C6. Now let's discuss teams, and primarily there are 5 archetypes she fits in. First is the Quick Bloom team, which consists of Clorinde herself, Furina, Nahida and Fischl, and this team on paper is her best damage team, but since this team has no healer or shielder, survivability might be an issue, so you can swap Fischl for Baiju, Yao Yao or Shinobu. However, if you don't have Furina, then you can run Xingqiu or Yelan instead in the Hyper Bloom comp, but again no healer might be an issue. Another solid archetype are Aggravate comps, which consists of Clorinde, Nahida, Fischl and Kazuha, and according to the math, both Aggravate and Quick Bloom teams are our best ones. But now we get into the part you subscribe to me for, the practicality part, which is something theory crafting won't tell you, cause well, it's theory. So on paper, Aggravate and Quick Bloom might be best, true, but in a realistic scenario which is the Abyss or even the new endgame, you will be against multiple enemies at once, and that means a taser team or one particular overload team will be better than everything else. And this overload team is my favorite cause it will net you more damage overall and it's fun, which is subjective of course. And what exactly is this team you ask? Well, it's Clorinde, Fischl, Xiangling and Chevreuse. This team is my personal number 1 and will give you max damage along with max comfort since you also have a healer in this team. And the reason this team does so much damage is cause of one word, and that word is Xiangling. Need I say more? Everyone at this point knows that Xiangling's burst nukes planets. So some unknown being in Teyvat will get instant nuked by her. And if enemies come in hordes, then that's even better cause Xiangling's burst attacks all around her. So again, instant nuke. So yeah, my point is that this team will be her best team practically, and the only downside to this team is that if Clorinde is on the Bond of Life set, then there will be 2 to 3 seconds downtime before restarting the rotation rotation since Clorinde's skill has a duration of 7.5 seconds. And this issue can be solved by using the Thundering Fury set, but of course that means less damage from Clorinde. Now moving on to her last archetype, the Taser Comms, which is my least favorite one honestly, but still a good choice regardless. So a team of Clorinde, Xingqiu, Furina and Fischl is a really solid choice with good damage. And in an AoE scenario, Beidou would be a good alternative to Fischl, but her burst requires too much energy, and that means you'll be bursting once a year with her unless you have over 250 energy recharge. You can also use Elan instead of Furina if you don't have her, and then the Taser comp is good to go. So with that explanation out of the way, the sole reason to pull for her is not cause of her damage, it's cause Hoyo refuses to buff her buttons, which means she busting out those things sometime soon, cause holy shit. And if that ain't worth spending $10,000, then I don't know what is.